Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the CCTA Planning Committee meeting. It is now 1:30 p.m. We're calling the meeting to order. Could you please pay attention to this short video?
This meeting will be conducted as a Zoom webinar to allow for public participation and comments. The Contra Costa Transportation Authority does not condone hate speech in any form. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organizations, but providing such information is voluntary. Citizens participating in person wishing to speak should submit a public speaker card to the clerk. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the raise hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice on the meeting agenda will be provided to the members. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand in Zoom or submit a public speaker card, and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Thank you. So the next item on, Jackie, the roll call, please.
Commissioner Carlson?
Here.
Commissioner Meadows?
Here.
Commissioner Perkins?
Here.
Vice Chair Haskew?
Here.
Chair Kelly?
Here.
Okay, all commissioners present?
Great, thank you. So the next item on the agenda is public comment for items that are not on our agenda today. Is there anyone wishing to speak during public comment? Jackie, do we have anyone?
I see no hands raised, and there's been no written public comment.
Or no written or no remote public comment. Okay, thank you. So that concludes public comment period. The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Do any of the commissioners want to make any comments or pull any items? I don't see that. Jackie, is there anyone who wishes to speak on an item on the consent calendar?
No written public comment and no hands raised.
Okay, so bringing it back to the committee, is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, so a motion by Haskew, second by Perkins. Any discussion? Jackie, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Carlson?
Aye.
Commissioner Meadows?
Aye.
Commissioner Perkins?
Aye.
Vice Chair Haskew?
Aye.
Chair Kelly?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously.
Great. So we now move on to regular agenda items, and the first one is an informational item providing an update on the integrated transit plan and public survey, and that will be presented by Ying Smith. Welcome, Ying.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. Today, I'm actually going to have our consultant, Nicole Hilary, to give us a presentation. Let her start first, and I will wrap up. Nicole, are you ready and share the screen for us?
Hi, good afternoon. Just getting the deck ready to go.
While Nicole is setting up, yeah, this is the update on the integrated transit plan. And as you know that we have been making a lot of progress. Most recently, we completed a public survey as part of the Task 1 market assessment. So we have some very interesting details to share with you. And at the end, we also want to give you some highlight on other deliverables which we will present to you in more details at the workshop in October. So today's information is to focus on the public survey as well as give you a preview of what is ahead.
Okay, just confirming that this is visible now.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, Yang. Yeah, so to dig in and provide an update on some background, one of the first tasks that the Integrated Transit Plan team partook in was to do a service assessment and travel market analysis The goals here were identifying where transit is effectively meeting needs, corridors and communities that are not well served, and also looking into the barriers and propensity for transit use. So a little bit of background, we had a variety of different primary data sources for this. So we've relied heavily on sources like Replica, which aggregates census and behavioral data, travel patterns throughout the county. We also utilized CCTA's user analysis surveys, which were surveys of the primary corridors throughout the county, which had a variety of different questions related to transit use and travel behaviors and motivators more broadly, as well as the transit operators' recent passenger surveys. And results were not all that surprising. We found that frequent transit riders tend to reside in West County. They tend to be younger, women, people of color, and in lower income housing households. We see that about 30% of residents use the bus and 8% were frequent riders. We saw a really strong willingness for individuals to change their behavior around transit. So 48% were willing to try or increase their use of the bus. And this was especially pronounced for our West County residents. Top priorities for transit were things like frequent service, expanding routes, faster travel times, and trip reliability. And we also saw some unique concerns emerge as well in those data. So in West County, things like getting the bus through traffic. Central County had expressed a concern for real-time information, and East County safety at their stops and stations. So with all of this in mind, we did have some caveats and identify some limitations of these data. For example, we noticed because these were representative, mostly representative surveys, which was the bulk of our data, we did see a less than desired representation of transit riders within the county. And we also lacked specificity in questions related to transit needs and solutions, particularly those that were going to be focal point for the integrated transit plan. So in response to this, we conducted a targeted follow-up study to gain direct public input. So in terms of the methodology for this follow-up survey, we targeted residents of Contra Costa County, and we wanted to focus on or oversample from transit riders as well as equity priority communities. This was conducted over the course of 1 month. The survey was open from June 10th through July 10th, and we received nearly 2,000 responses. 1,300 of which were complete responses. So you will see some variability in the sample size from question to question. We did try to retain as much data as possible. In terms of the survey format, it was available online, on paper, and by phone. And it was deployed in English, Spanish, and Chinese. We used a variety of recruitment tactics to reach our desired sample. So we used digital recruitment tactics, so through CCTA in particular, e-blasts on the website and on social media. We also did coordinate with 511 Contra Costa. They do have a large audience and shared this out on our behalf. We coordinated with the bus operators on their digital channels, so you might have seen it on the WestCat and County Connection websites, as well as their social media, as well as paid social media ads that were deployed in both Spanish and English. So really, we cast a wide net in terms of our recruitment. Because of our desire to reach transit riders and those in equity priority communities, we did also use a variety of tactics for in-person recruitment. That included onboard bus ads, which can be shown in the, the lower images. We posted flyers at community services and community locations. And we also performed 60 hours of intercept surveying on board and at transit stops and stations. And so that was coordinated with the agencies to identify which were routes that were both had high traffic and also reached kind of a real variety of communities as well. So in terms of our sample, we did have a very representative sample here, despite this being a convenience survey. We had good diversity in terms of age and income groups represented. The location was mostly representative of Contra Costa County population as well. We saw a lot of participation from residents of Richmond, Concord, and Walnut Creek. We found that greater than 50% of respondents were people of color, and 12% had noted a mobility-related disability, which is on par with census data. We found 74% had consistent vehicle access, and about 55% owned their own home. And I'll speak to kind of some differences there shortly. In terms of bus usage, we did have a lot of diversity in terms of the frequency in which people took the bus. You can see here that 26% noted that they never take the bus, so we consider those our non-riders. We had 39% were our infrequent riders, so they take the bus a few times a year to a few times a month. And then 34% representing our frequent riders. So this is, a jump from the typical what we see, which is about 8%. So these are our folks who take the bus a few times a week or daily. We also asked about what services they utilize, and we found that AC Transit and County Connections local services were most commonly reported. So knowing that we have some key groups that emerge in these data that related to ridership, we do want to just call attention to some key differences in rider characteristics. Characteristics were largely as expected for frequent riders. This was really consistent with our past research. We see that there are more likely to be frequent riders are more likely to be persons of color, younger, make a lower household income. They also tend to travel to work, go into the office or into the workplace or school 4+ days per week. We also see that they are less likely to own their home or have vehicle access compared to non-riders. So we've removed the third kind of intermediate group just for simplicity here. But generally, we see that infrequent riders tend to be more like non-riders than frequent riders. So while they kind of fall in between on some of these characteristics, they really resemble non-riders more. So to also get a sense of where people are traveling and where they live, we combined information about home zip code as well as travel patterns to understand where people are frequenting. We see there's the greatest number of participants frequent outside of the county. So there is a lot of travel to San Francisco as well as Alameda County. And then we have a good representation of people who are frequenting or live within Central County, the fewest who live or frequent East County in these data. So digging into some of the outcomes or the key results with characteristics of our sample in mind, we asked some direct questions about potential outcomes of the ITP. So here what you're seeing is that when asked for ratings about how important some of these outcomes were, and these were described a little bit more elaborately, but for shorthand, things like fast and reliable service, uniform mapping and signage, and even early and late night service. It's pretty unsurprising to see that many find these outcomes to be somewhat or very important, pushing well into the 90s across the board here. So when asked another way to select their top 3, we do start to see some priorities emerge. We largely see the same order in terms of importance and the same kind of drop off. But we see that things like speed and reliability of transit, real-time information, and frequent service are among the most commonly reported potential outcomes that were priority to the sample. Some less familiar services or less transit-oriented services emerged as lower priority for this group. So things like bike and car rentals. So another way to look at these data that's important here, especially because we have similarly sized groups represented in terms of ridership, is to parse this out by rider group. And we see that there's some patterns that emerge here. For example, for non-riders, we see that many care about bike and pedestrian paths, having a single mobile app, wayfinding, emerge, and they're not particularly concerned with things like frequency of service, service span, and weekend service. So they tend to be kind of more supportive of some of these characteristics that help you understand or access transit, but a little bit less about the service quality itself from this group. Our frequent riders, after speed and reliability, many care about things like frequency of service, service span, weekend service, and coverage and affordability. We see fewer concerned with things like bike and ped paths and emerging technology here. So kind of priority shifts between these 2 key groups, again, with our infrequent riders being somewhat in between. When we break these top potential outcomes out by where people live and tend to travel, we see that things like speed and reliability and real-time updates, those are important to everyone. But there's a little bit more variability in some of the other selections. For West County in particular, we see that bike and pedestrian and real-time information features are important. Central County notes things like better coverage, real-time information, and bike and ped paths. South County is concerned with better coverage, bike and pedestrian paths, and real-time info. And East County with things like better coverage and affordability. So some unique characteristics in those top desired outcomes. Another set of questions was related to trade-offs for service. So we wanted to understand, when put side by side, was there kind of a key preference that emerged as the team is going to start making decisions around what to prioritize within the integrated transit plan? So looking at the sample as a whole, we found that expanding service to cover areas that are more spread out, so more of a coverage related question, was a priority or more important to our sample than focusing service on fewer routes with more frequent service. When asked, when putting frequency up against transfers, we found that people prioritized buses that come more often, even if that means that they need to wait for transfers. And then when asking about traditional versus emerging mobility, we found greater support for traditional bus and rail transit as opposed to exploring emerging technologies. So breaking these down by rider group, we see some distinctions emerge. While groups were generally felt pretty similarly for comparisons or trade-offs like coverage and frequency. We do see that that there's greater variation between groups on frequency and directness. So those who are frequent riders are much more tolerant of transfers than non-riders. And, for this, a possible explanation is that for non-riders, directness is more like driving. And so the inconvenience factor is more of a concern. And we don't really see much of a meaningful difference by region on these questions. So we don't break it out that way. So in summary, we see greatest importance is placed on things like fast and reliable service, real-time information at stops, and frequent service, with less importance things like car rentals, bike rentals, autonomous taxis, or uniform mapping. In terms of trade-offs, we see pretty consistently that respondents favor transit coverage over increasing frequency, and that frequency is preferred by frequent riders, even if it means more transfers. In terms of resource allocation, there's also a preference for investing in traditional bus and rail services over emerging technologies. And then digging into the nuances found across rider groups, we find that non-riders focus on things that make getting to transit easier. And frequent riders are really focusing on things like service quality. So, things that get non-riders over the initial kind of hump of getting exposed to the service and using it more frequently, understanding it. Kind of the first barriers there tend to be things like real-time information, mobile apps, and safe walking and biking paths. In terms of regional nuances, we see it similar overall, although there are some regions did note some unique characteristics too. For example, affordable fares was elevated in terms of priority for West County and East County, and having a single mobile app to support utilizing transit was of value to South County. So with that in mind, and I'm certainly excited to hear questions from the group, I'll turn it over to Ying to dig into how we're incorporating this input into the integrated transit plan process.
Thank you, Nicole. Yeah, if you can help me advance the slides, that would be good. Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you. Next, we just want to give you a preview of what some of the bigger deliverables in the ITP and really try to answer the question how we use the information from the entire market assessment and how inform our recommendations in the action plan, in the policy, as well as the capital program in the ITP. And what we would like to do is really at the October workshop, we were going to go into two big topics, the action plan, which is the key recommendations in how we improve transit services. The other category is the policies and policy recommendations to make transit better in the long run. And we want to use information to guide a deep discussion with the board and really consider today's information is to a preview. And then, so here's a few topics we'll cover. And one, as mentioned, the action plan, and there's some details to it. Nicole, next slide, please. I want to show you the next map, which is a key piece, is the action plan recommendation. The map shows a network of transit priority corridors, the TPCs, as well as the frequent bus network. And on this map, we don't show the local bus because that's really the details. The ITP is at a higher level. So as you can see, we recommend a group of high capacity transit priority corridors. Those are the ones that think BRT, like we could go starting from transit priority, transit signal priority treatments, and all the way to dedicated lanes, like the BRT type of service, high frequency service. And the next, purple lines, they are the frequent service with probably very minimal capital improvements. It's just to increase the service level. As we know, frequency is really important in the transit quality. And I just want to share that, as you know, we have 4 transit operators participating in the ITP plus MTC plus CCTA staff. The group is we have very good consensus on the TPCs as well as the frequent bus network. And the next topic is, in your next slide, which is the access improvement zones. As long as the first last mile connections to serve those zones. With this map, I know it's really busy, there are some areas we propose either the AV kind of application or other types of emerging mobility solutions. So the dark purples are the future shared mobility hubs, the zones that we need to improve access to. And in our toolbox, which is the next slide, please, you can see there's not only the technology, the first group, not only the technology, but the bicycle and walking improvements. And the next slide, we focus on, right here, Nicole, I'm good here, the emerging technologies. Sorry, go back one slide. And we put them into 3 groups. One group is the technology in service, how we provide service. That's the AVs or the automated transit network. And you think about the vehicles, or maybe the vehicles in a different form. The next group is technology in operations. This is more behind the scene. The customers may not see it, but those are the kind of application of the newer technology to improve transit operation efficiency as well as safety. The next group, some of the solutions are more customer focused. The interface with the customers, how they get information, how they navigate our transit stations, and how we can relay the information, help them do trip planning or reserve a trip. There's a lot of development, especially in the last area, so the scale can be a little bit smaller, and hopefully we can see some of the solutions within the next hopefully 3 years or so. And we will, again, go into details with you. Just want to give you a heads up, in this group is where we have many opinions in our working group. And it's not surprising, since we're talking about we're entering into an emerging territory. So it's not surprising that we have different opinions and some healthy debate. So the next group, again, I want to show you the categories of transit policy. Policy is related to transit. And again, we want to address some of the bigger policy issues, go beyond today's structure. And some of them may be really, really ambitious, but we want to highlight how the policy in land use, parking, for example, in service deliveries, how if we can break through, and then what kind of impact we may see. So again, those are just the categories we want to show you in terms of the policy changes. Next slide, please. And in summary, again, I talk about the October board workshop, and we really want to dive into and connect our market assessment, the survey, with those recommendations. And also connect with, talk to you more about the action plan as well as the policy proposals. The next group just want to show you like farther out our timeline, and we do have several deliverables to share with you, and we really hope to wrap this up next year, early next year, but of course, we'll welcome your input and the input from many stakeholders. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Nicole and Ying. So that was very good, very thorough, and I want to dig into this some more. Are there any comments here from any commissioners? Ken?
Just real
Ken?
quick, is this work being done elsewhere across other transportation authorities? I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity to compare and contrast, especially the public outreach and the needs assessment as we go forward.
I would say the ITP is actually very unique. We do have many transit agencies doing the comprehensive operations analysis. And for example, Tri-Delta Transit is just working on one, and they do like in terms of outreach, the stakeholder engagement can be very similar. While our focus on stakeholder engagements, we focus a lot more with the agencies because we're not necessarily changing the individual routes here. Our recommendations is more our looking farther out. So that's but still a good comparison. MTC is taking a lot of effort on the regional network management. So we are, in a way, we're a little bit in between because we're very close to our transit agencies as well as our customers, while we do have a regional take, at least county-wide take, as well as a regional take on this one.
Yeah, maybe I can just add, I think so MTC funded 3 studies. They funded a study in Sonoma County, and then they also funded a study in Solano County, and then they funded our study. So and the reason why MTC kind of funded those 3 studies was because, to Ying's point, this MTC regional network management, and then all of this buzz around, consolidation and coordination, that's, if you think about North Bay and East Bay, that's where a big bulk of the small operators are at. And so I think it was MTC's really effort to fund these studies to really determine how can we get transit better coordinated, across all these multiple, because Solano, I think, has 3 or 4 transit agencies similar to us. We've got 4 or 5. Sonoma's got a couple. So I think there's definitely an effort to kind of how does this better coordinate. And I think Solano finished theirs already. It was called a connected mobility study. But I don't think they did a deep dive into what we're trying to accomplish. I think, to Ying's point, the integrated transit plan was not about just really coordination. It was also to be very aspirational, and think about okay, how do we truly want to transform transit, in Contra Costa County? I think understanding what the public needs and wants are, particularly from that non-rider standpoint, frequent bus riders are going to continue to ride buses, right? And so what we have to focus on is on the non-rider, because that's what we're trying to do, is really to get more mode shift, get more people in the transit, and so the non-rider is really what the customers who we're trying to serve, trying to really attract. And so I think that's why I think it's really important from the survey to make that distinguishment between non-rider and rider. Because if we really want to make transit really effective, then, the non-riders, they want more direct express bus type of service, more point-to-point service, right? Not just sit in a bus and wait from stop to stop to stop. They want more of this kind of on-demand, point-to-point service, right? And so I think that kind of gets into the microtransit elements of things. And so, but microtransit is not easy to implement. There's a number of policies, it impacts fares, it impacts a lot of things. And so, as you all aware, the closest thing we have to microtransit is out in East County, which is the Try My Ride. And I think microtransit works when you have hubs, and that's why we developed those access improvement zones. We have a number of shared mobility hubs, access improvement zones. I mean, that's really targeted for more microtransit type of service. But I think, getting back to your direct question, I think those are the number of studies that we're aware of. I think we're also aware of some other stuff happening across the nation as well as globally. I'm aware of a transit operator in Germany that's actually doing a complete new business plan and transforming their entire transit system because they know that the current business model doesn't work, and so they're just redoing their entire system basically. And I think more moving towards this on-demand, autonomous shuttle type of platform. That's one thing I wanted to clarify. On-demand shuttles and robotaxis, those are 2 different things. So autonomous taxis are more the Waymo robotaxi model. That's not the autonomous shuttle. The autonomous shuttle really falls in that on-demand shuttle column, which was 80%, 90%, in terms of demand. And I think the non-rider I think wanted it more than the frequent rider. So anyways, I think those are the number of studies that we're aware of, and then, like I said, it plays into the whole regional network management conversation that's happening at MTC.
Yeah, and I think the only thing else that I took out of it was kind of the educational component as we get at the at the implementation part of this, is that when you look at the survey and you look at the riders, you know, they're looking for faster, more reliable traditional transit. And the reality is more buses on the road, more frequent buses on the road, technology might fill those gaps. So bringing them from, I'm not so motivated by technology and new innovation as I am about more. And so it'll be education to say the technology will give you the more you're looking for and faster, more reliable, maybe ultimately more affordable transit.
Yeah, like, I mean, I know of one transit operator that's seriously augmenting a lot of their fixed route with autonomous shuttles. They're saying, okay, well, you know, if I can put more autonomous, like right now I've got buses going every 20 minutes, and if I can augment that with more autonomous shuttles, one, they're more cost effective, and then two, you're getting more frequency, right? So they're moving from 20-minute headways to like 3-minute, 5-minute headways because they've got more shuttles in the same fixed route. You know, I know we think of shuttles as more of that on-demand microtransit, but there's also an application, I think, even in the fixed route to get more frequency and to get better headways and better service on the fixed routes.
And I would just add, I think that both of you discussing this, that's a very important point. I wanted to say, Nicole, thank you for doing the in-person recruitment and the interviews of the frequent riders. These people, particularly in West County, I know, are transit dependent. They got to ride transit. They've got to get to work 4 to 5 days a week, and they don't have any choice. And they may not be, you know, so interested in technology now, but you know, I know AC Transit is looking at perhaps cutting some of its routes. WestCat is going to be doing a study, SF Muni as well, because there are challenges with not enough revenue coming in. So what if, sort of to Tim's point, if some of these outlying bus routes, maybe they could be covered by autonomous shuttles in the future, and we could train frequent riders to take those, particularly if they're security guards and they have to come home late at night and things like that. So it just might be more feasible all the way around. So I really appreciate you talking to the frequent riders, because there are they need transit, and who knows, in the future they might be really, really open to this. So that's really important. Anyway, I look forward to discussing this at the board workshop. Any other comments or questions here? No? Okay, well, Ying and Nicole, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And we look forward to carrying on this discussion. So to move on, oh, Jackie, any comments on this topic at all?
No written public comment, and I see no hands raised.
Okay, so let's move on to agenda item 4B. And this one is adopting a resolution to authorize the authority's executive director to execute an agreement and related documentation with California Department of Transportation with respect to development of a countywide emergency evacuation plan. And I think Matt Kelly is going to present this.
Thank you, Chair Kelly. Good afternoon, Planning Committee members. Matt Kelly, Principal Transportation Planner with the authority. I am presenting this on behalf of John Huang, who couldn't be here today, but he will be leading this project, and he led the grant application process. So this is an action item, but it's also a good news story. Coming out of the action plan development that we did at the sub-regional level over the last couple of years, one thing we really heard from local staff was, and from elected officials, was the need for evacuation plans to be somehow worked into our action plans. Action plans can't really do that, but an action that came out of the action plans was to develop a emergency evacuation plan. But that was really just at the sub-regional level, and most of those conversations were focused in the La Miranda area. However, in the last year or so, those conversations have expanded countywide, and based on those conversations, staff decided to apply for a countywide emergency evacuation plan through the Caltrans Sustainable Communities Sustainable Transportation Planning Grants under SB1. We applied for a little over $1.7 million $1.7 million project with about $1.4 million in grant funding. We were awarded that full amount, and we were very excited. That is a large amount for a Caltrans, for one of these sustainable communities planning grants. We think it's enough with, it's about 1.4 in Caltrans grant funds and a little over $200,000 in local match. So CCTA definitely has some skin in the game on this. But we will be hiring a consultant to perform the plan. You know, this is a very specific expertise here, so we'll be looking for a consultant that knows a lot about the kind of environmental and you know, the you know, aspects of emergencies that we as transportation planning professionals aren't normally working in, like wildfire, refinery fire, sea level rise, tsunami evacuations, earthquakes, all those things that we, as transportation planners, aren't in our normal wheelhouse. So this is new for us, but it is part of the transportation system, so we feel there is a role for us here. So hopefully this grant will get us to where we need to be so we can have, you know, very specific plans for all parts of the county, because every part of the county is different, very different types of emergencies, very different types of evacuations that will have to go on. And we also want to focus on areas that need specific, you know, assistance in an emergency evacuation, whether that be transit-dependent folks that we just talked about, elderly who are reliant on paratransit, or people that may be zero vehicle households. So we think this plan will be able to do all that. I'm not going to get into the details of the scope. We did develop a scope for the purpose of the grant application, but we will refine that once we get a consultant on board. So we'll come back to you with a more detailed scope, hopefully late fall. Basically, once we go through this process today of you approving a resolution that signifies CCTA's support for the grant and the study, that Caltrans will then allocate the funds probably later this fall, and then we'll enter into a restricted grant agreement with them. And so what you're doing today is approving the resolution and authorizing our executive director to enter into that restricted grant agreement. And we have a copy of the grant application and a template restricted grant agreement with Caltrans in your packet. So the recommendation here is to approve resolution 2450G and to authorize the director to enter into a RGA with Caltrans.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions or comments here from the commission? Matt, I would just say one thing. I know in West County there's been a lot of concern with people who live in heavily wooded areas, particularly in the hills. I know of one commissioner in Richmond, or one council member in Richmond, who's concerned about where all the eucalyptus trees are, because they're very concerned about that. I happen to know where the fire roads are in my neighborhood. I know which roads are blocked off, and I've alerted my police and the fire to, you know, these bolts have to be cut if we have an emergency, but not everybody is tuned into that, right? So I think this will be really, really important. Jackie, any comment, public comment?
No public comment, written or virtual.
Okay, so bringing it back here to the commissioners, do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve the resolution.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. So a motion by Carlson, second by Perkins. Any further discussion? If not, Jackie, can we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Carlson?
Aye.
Commissioner Meadows?
Aye.
Commissioner Perkins?
Aye.
Vice Chair Haskew?
Aye.
Chair Kelly?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Great. So now we move to regular agenda item 4C, one of my favorite topics, San Pablo Avenue Multimodal Corridor Project. Approval to submit an RM3 allocation request for outreach activities. And again, this will be presented by Matt Kelly.
Thank you, Chair Kelly. I figured you might like this item. Good afternoon again, Matt Kelly with the authority. So this is another action item, but also another good news item in that we are moving on from our studying of San Pablo Avenue and how to manage as many modes as possible in there safely and efficiently. As you probably know, we have been working with the Alameda County Transportation Commission on on the entire San Pablo Avenue corridor in both counties, running from downtown Oakland to Contra Costa College in San Pablo. And last year, we presented that study to the board here, where some recommendations were presented for intersection improvements to support pedestrian, bicycle, and transit rider safety. And then looking at a potential BRT treatment in the corridor. So the study recommendation was to have a pilot project. We may proceed with a pilot, we may proceed with something else, but we think this effort here that we want to move on to phase 3, which is focused on public outreach, will really help us hone in on an idea, on a corridor-wide vision or concept, both including those safety improvements and a potential BRT facility. There's a lot of consensus that amongst stakeholders, elected officials, that something needs to be done on San Pablo Avenue. But because in Contra Costa County we have so many differences in width, differences in what each community envisions for their part of the corridor, and some things that a lot of the business owners really don't want to give up, and mostly that's parking. So what we plan to do in phase 3, and we're now calling it a plan, or we're now calling it the project, no longer a study. We're trying to move a project forward, and we're going to start that with outreach to the business community, each and every business along San Pablo Avenue. It's really the main street through our 3 jurisdictions, as well as the stakeholders, so the jurisdictions, the transit agencies, Caltrans in at least a mile or so of the corridor, and also the general public who uses the corridor, and that may be people within and outside of Contra Costa County. And so we hope that a really robust set of outreach will help inform the communities and help develop this vision. And then to support all that, we want to do an economic analysis, an impact analysis of what these investments in the corridor could do. How it would positively benefit the business community. Say you did give up one of the parking spaces in front of your business. What could you expect in return in terms of the number of new people that may frequent your business due to all these other improvements that are going on? So it's things like that. We've heard loud and clear that parking is kind of a sacred cow, but we're gonna, it's gonna be part of the conversation. How do we retain that, but also get these other improvements in the corridor and improve our economic outlook in the corridor? So really we see this is the next logical step we have to go through before we can get to really conceptual design and engineering and environmental. So our plan is to work with our partner agencies, that's the 3 cities, Caltrans, AC Transit, and request a $1 million allocation from MTC for RM3, Regional Measure 3. As you know, those funds are now available. There is a $25 million I-80 transit category. 7.5 million of that are reserved for San Pablo Avenue. So we're just taking a small part of that. $7.5 million isn't going to get you any sort of a project. So we feel that taking a small chunk of it to do the outreach and then reserving the rest for the environmental process and also for matching funds for grants is probably the most logical use of these funds. So our ask for you today is to approve the the request, the RM3 request in general, and then the approval of Resolution 24-49G, which authorizes that submittal to MTC.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions or comments here from commissioners? No, then I'll have a comment because I spend a lot of time on this corridor going up and down, and we've discussed it a lot at WICTAC. Matt, you and I have talked about it. I've also talked with Tim. I know that one of the things we want to do is to interview all the business owners along San Pablo Avenue, and I mean not just sending them surveys, but knocking on their door, going in and talking. And I talked with one official in San Francisco transit agency, and when they put the BRT on Van Ness, they went to every single business and found out what the concerns were and so forth, and that was really, really helpful. What I don't want to see happen is the mistake that happened over on Valencia Street in San Francisco, where the transit agency decided to put in a center-running bike lane between 15th and 23rd, and the business owners were just up in arms because it was really cutting in to their business. And so now San Francisco has decided to look into side running bike lanes. So we want to do, a good job first. And I think that this is really, really important. So with that, Jackie, any public comment at all?
No public comment, written or virtual.
Okay, so we have a motion here before us. Oh, because I'm chairing. Why don't you do it?
I'll make the motion for you then to support this and all the items that go with it.
I'll second.
Okay, so motion by Askew, seconded by Perkins. Any further discussion? No, Jackie, can we have the roll?
Commissioner Carlson?
Yes.
Commissioner Meadows?
Aye.
Commissioner Perkins?
Yes.
Vice Chair Askew?
Yes.
Chair Kelly?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously.
Okay, so now we move on to regular agenda item 4D, and this is a mouthful. It is the Integrated Open Data Platform for Multimodal Access Transportation, Optimat project, authorization to execute cooperative agreement number 120.01 with the U.S. Department of Transportation, Office of the Secretary of Transportation Research, to receive Strengthening Mobility and Revolutioning Transportation, that is SMART, grant funds, and agreement number 704 with UC Berkeley Partners for Advanced Transportation Technology, that's UCB PATH, for technical support and development presented by Ying Smith, and I also see Rashida Kumar over here. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Kelly and Commissioners. Good afternoon. My name is Rashida Kamara, and I'm the Program Manager here at Contra Costa Transportation Authority for Accessibility and Equity. Boy, that was a mouthful. So in October 2023, CCTA applied for a grant, the Strengthening Mobility and Revolutionizing Transportation grant. And the idea of the grant was to basically, was a two-stage program in which we will use technology to solve real-world problems. Just to give you a little bit of history, because we've been talking a lot about our Office of Accessibility and Equity. We don't quite mention it on this slide, but I just wanted to remind everyone of that. The Office of Accessibility and Equity, with its one-call, one-click call center, was a product of the Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan. And so there's going to be a foundation of that call center and that office that ties into this SMART grant. So back to the SMART grant, and you see how we brought that in later on. So the funds, as a two-stage process, there's a planning and prototyping grant, of which we did win, and then there's a stage 2, which is the implementation grant. So what is the problem that we were trying to solve here in Contra Costa County? That feeds back to the ATSP that I mentioned earlier. The challenges to accessible transportation, they were identified in the ATSP. We have different transportation needs for older adults and people with disabilities. We have 26 public, private, and paratransit agencies. That in itself can be a nightmare. And of course, we have diverse and sometimes overlapping service area. So the solution was to develop accessible information hub for live travel updates and increase available transportation options. So this is our current state. We have multiple fixed route public transportation systems. We have 5 ADA paratransit services. We have 11 city programs. We have 3 volunteer programs, and we have 3 transportation network companies. When I was reading through this, I almost said that then we have a partridge in a pear tree. There's a lot going on in transportation services, and so the need for this grant and everything that we're doing in the HESP is desperately needed. So the integrated open data platform for multimodal accessible transportation, we call it the Optimat project. Basically, the idea of the project is a proposed cloud-based online tool that'll gather data from all the different transportation organizations, both public and private, and it'll put it all in one central location so that when passengers need the information, they can either access it by calling our one call, one click call center and asking for trip planning, or they can have an app that's readily available for them on their phone that they can access because the information is available to them in one source. Stage 1 of the grant was $1,096,500. So we also have a research partner. Our research partner is UC Berkeley PATH, which is Partners for Advanced Transportation Technology. We have partnered with them before. The division of the grant will allow for $690,000, of which they would do the technology and research piece of this project. So the schedule and the project phases include reference review, assessing status quo, assessing gaps, collection of data, specs and define application, the system's prototype and demo, the customer and community engagement and training, and also developing performance metrics and implementation plan. This project is slated for 18 months with a completion date of April 2026. The idea of this project is that it's going to be extremely successful so that we may not only apply for, but be granted phase 2 of the project grant. So, Optimat is just one of the services that will be provided by our one call, one click call center. And even though it's just one of the services, it's an integral part of what it is that we do. When you think about the one call, one click call center, there are many services that they could offer a passenger when the passenger calls. But based on the previous slides, a passenger may want to do a trip planning. And right now, there are actually many apps out there that somebody can do trip planning. But remember our demographic. We're dealing with seniors and persons with disabilities. Sometimes they just need to pick up the phone, call one office, which is our Office of Accessibility and Equity, and their call center, and they say, Rashida, I need to get from point A to point B. I need to be able to go into my system and tell them which fixed route service they could take, which paratransit service they can take, which city-based program they can take in order to make one fluid move. Now, there are several options out there that still do that. What the Optimat brings to this particular scenario is that at the end of the day, our call center agent or the passenger through the app should be able to push a button. The multi-modes of transportation that are available to them, they should also be able to book the trip. That is the ultimate goal. So the first phase of this is to develop the prototype. The second phase will be to book it. But the foundation of this is to make sure that we have a robust one call, one click call center in which this tool can be used for that service. The one call, one click, as I mentioned, there's a website. I just gave a scenario of the call center agent that'll answer the phone. They're going to do trip search. They're going to do a referral tool. Optimat is going to provide an AI-powered trip service for them, and they're also going to be able to provide an experience review. In other words, whether they use the app or the website, at some point in time, they should be able to let us know exactly how that trip went. The mobile app, as I mentioned, agency-free AVL systems, real-time availability. So a passenger should be able to see that they can take either a fixed route trip to a certain point, whether it's a paratransit trip that they're outside of the service area, they should be able to take a paratransit trip. They should know what time they arrive as a result of their paratransit trip and whether or not they can meet BART as the next leg of their trip. And this is what this information should do. The other thing that it should do is also same-day trip requests. It should be able to do that also. So, our board action, staff seeks authorization for the chair to execute a cooperative agreement number 120.01 with the DOT-OST-R in the amount of $1,096,500 in SMART grant funds, including future amendments, plus to execute an agreement number 704 with UC Berkeley Path in the amount not to exceed $690,000, and to authorize the executive director or his designee to make any non-substantive changes to the agreement. And I'll be more than happy to take questions.
Thank you, Rashida. That was very comprehensive. You just cut through all of that information really well. Comments or questions here? Yeah, Luella?
I feel like a proud mama, because we're getting closer and closer and closer to what we set out to do, years ago. So thank you so much for this good news, and when it's my turn, I will make the motion.
Yes, and thank you, Rashida. Oh, and I just want to say one thing. You know, sometimes people get so confused by technology, my husband's one of them, that you just want to call and talk to a real person. And maybe after the first time you talk to a real person and they help you get through it and they help you plan your trip, then maybe in future times you could do it on your own. But, you know, sometimes you're just kind of lonely, scared, frightened, and just give me a real person to talk to. And that's great that will be part of this, so thank you. So Jackie, any public comment here?
No written or virtual.
Okay, so no other comments. Luella, did you want to say something?
Yes, I move that we give the authorization to do all the things in this screen.
All right, is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay, so motion by Haskew, seconded by Meadows. Jackie, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Carlson?
Aye.
Commissioner Meadows?
Aye.
Commissioner Perkins?
Aye.
Vice Chair Haskew?
Aye.
Chair Kelly?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rashida. Thank you, Ying. That's great. Okay, so on to the next item, and this will be, approval of fiscal year 24-25 Transportation Fund for Clean Air Projects that comply with the Bay Area Quality Management District's board-approved policies, and this is going to be presented by Ying Smith. Welcome, Ying.
Good afternoon, thank you. We're setting up. So this is a old topic, but new recommendation. This is the Transportation Fund for Clean Air, TFCA, fiscal year 24-25 projects. And just want to refresh your memory, early this year in May, the authority board approved the TFCA 40% fund policy. And this policy guides the process of how we distribute the funds and select projects. After the board's approval, staff released a call for project and will allow 3 weeks for the potential project sponsors to submit, to respond to the calls. The total fund available is a little bit over $1.7 million for projects. At the end, we received 10 project proposals. In our attachment B and C, you see the details on the projects, the description and the dollar amount. So initially, the first request, the fund request is over by almost $500,000, almost $500,000. And so first round, CTTA staff did a screening. We review for project eligibility and to make sure the projects are in compliance with the air district's policies. And there's some calculations we need to do. And they found, all projects are found to be eligible. And the next step is what we describe in the policy is a collaborative process between CCTA and the 4 RTPC staff. So we have 3 big group meetings and multiple conversations because we have 10 eligible projects. They are all very, very good projects with support from each project sponsor. So we've gone through a pretty lengthy process to see how things work. Our goal is to fund all projects. So there are some tough questions and look at the project cost and look at the project schedule and look at if there are ways they can either adjust the scope of work or just trim the cost. So it was, I would say, a very interesting process, but we really have people who participate, who collaborate, and I just want to use this opportunity to share CCTA staff's appreciation for that kind of partnership. And at the end, some of the sponsors agree to change the either project scope or schedule to kind of make more room in terms of the budget to allow the ability to fund all projects. So you can see at the end, this is the group of recommended projects and the dollar amount, amount that TFCA grant funds will be available to each one of them. So we did get to the total of that $1.7 million. So altogether, there are 4 countywide projects and 6 sub-regional projects. One key component is the benefit calculation. So as stated in the TFCA policy, each 4 subregion will receive the benefit that's proportional to the job housing formula. So every subregion is getting the benefit they deserve. And this is one to just show you that calculation was done. So with all this work, I mean, this is a long process. We started early this year. We really want to highlight some of the benefits the entire county or communities are getting. We do have a variety of project sponsors. In the past, only the RTPCs were eligible sponsors, and this time the cities, transit agencies, RTPCs, as well as CCTA are eligible sponsors. We do have some new project types being funded. There's a Class 4 bikeway project sponsored by City of Walnut Creek. We have a microtransit service sponsored by Tri-Delta Transit. The school bus programs, the 2 of them, Traffic and Lombard, the school bus, they each get a higher funding compared to the past. We continue to have school-based trip reduction programs, as well as a typical travel demand management program. Many of them stay. Some of them take on a different form, like what we mentioned in the next bullet point, the big win on transit. That's we kind of change the format of a transit incentive program to promote the uses of transit as a way to reduce trips as well as reduce emission. One really key thing we want to emphasize is the data-driven process. We really want to look at verifiable data. And I would say all projects make up really big improvements. And the big win on transit is a new way to verify those trips on transit. The typical transit services, both the microtransit as well as the school bus, they always have the reporting system, and that's pretty very easy for us to verify their trips and as well as the benefits. And most projects among the 10 will collect verifiable trip reduction data. We also want to highlight the cost sharing. All the countywide projects, the cost will be shared proportionally by the 4 subregions, and it's a more fair way to distribute the cost as well as the benefits. The RTPCs, again, is a collaborative process. 2 of the RTPCs, SWAT and WICTEC, has approved the subregional projects, and Transplan and Transpac will consider the board approval next Thursday, and that will be before the authority board takes an action. With that, we do have a staff recommendation seeking approval of Resolution 2437G, which approves the fiscal year 24-25 contract cost of TFCA 40% fund projects. The projects are complying with the Air District Board's approved policies, and we also request your authorization for the executive director to execute cooperative agreements with the fund recipients. That concludes my presentation, and happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Ying. That was very succinct and right to the point. So any questions or comments here?
I was impressed at how each project just made it underneath the threshold. One of them by, what, $20 underneath the threshold?
It's both art and science.
Yes. Well done.
Ying, I have a question. On slide number 7, you talked about validated VMT reduction and particularly big one on transit. How are you going to validate that? I mean, I know school bus programs can count the kids who get on, same with the microtransit. So how is Big Win on Transit going to do this?
Yeah, that's a very good question. This we're using like a lottery system, so people need to upload the screenshot of the Clipper card on the apps, people who use the apps, or a transit ticket. So to minimize the admin burden, we will only need to verify it when for the winner's trip. So we will collect that, and since it's a lottery system, there could be some missing data, let me put it that way, but we will only need to verify the trip that won that $511. It's a weekly drawing. So if we find any how to say, some behaviors, then we probably will just have to, we'll ask the participants to register their home address and their Clipper card number if that's available. So if people are not honest with their entry, we probably will have a system to make sure we police that in the future.
But couldn't I game the system? Like, let's say I got my Clipper card. How do you know that I actually took that trip and that it's actually me? Do I have to show you a picture of, my Clipper account with my name on it? And, Chris Kelly took this, like, BART trip from here to there. How are you actually going to validate that?
We will ask people to enter their name and home address, and with the Clipper card number, we will make sure it's a one-to-one. And like say, for example, I have 2 Clipper cards, I can only register one, so in that example. And what we're trying to look at, because your Clipper card screenshot shows the actual trip you took, either a bus trip, ferry, or BART. So that is what we're looking for, is the trip that was taken on transit.
So if I take a screenshot of that, you will want to either see my Clipper card number or my name to prove that it was me and not, my friend Scott here, right? I mean, because I can see people saying, oh, hey, let me game the system. Let me see if I can do that. So, we just want to be accurate. We want people to be honest.
Yeah, we will have a little bit more details. And we want to, I think it's a balance between like being able to verify the trips and the privacy, right? We're not trying to track people of how they travel. So we'll strike that balance. But the key is we're looking for the trips that were taken on transit. We kind of have to get on assumption that people take those trips instead of driving, right? Rather than take the trip for the fun of it. We just think the team would discuss this. It just doesn't happen enough. People say take the trip, a BART trip for the fun of it, to game the system, right? Because you do have to pay for that trip. So we think we can go on an assumption that most trips on transit are the trips that are not on single occupant vehicles.
Okay, so I know, for example, if I take the ferry, if I come back in the evening and look at my Clipper card online to see if it tracked that and how much they charged me, it shows that I actually took that trip. And I think, frankly, regarding privacy, if this is voluntary, then I'm volunteering to let you know, hey, I actually did do this. You're not forcing me to do it.
Yeah, that's
okay.
a good point.
Yeah. Okay, any other?
And you could take a backup selfie with the picture of.
Oh, I don't trust the selfie with AI right now. Anybody can fake anything. Okay, all right. Any other questions or comments? Jackie, any comments from the public?
No written and no virtual hands are raised.
Okay, so we have a resolution before us. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Okay, motion by Perkins. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Carlson. Jackie, can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Carlson?
Aye.
Commissioner Meadows?
Aye.
Commissioner Perkins?
Aye.
Vice Chair Kelly?
Aye.
Sorry, Chair Kelly?
Yeah.
Vice Chair Haskell?
Aye.
Thanks. And motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. So that concludes our regular agenda items. There's no correspondence. Are there any comments here from commissioners?
Yeah, I got one.
Yeah.
Starting this weekend, I know CTDA guys are you gonna mention that? Yeah, go for it. We're gonna close Bollinger Canyon Road for 9 days while they put in the verticals and the frame for the Iron Horse Trail Bollinger Crossing.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful to see it moving forward so
Oh, yeah.
quickly.
It is.
Yeah,
Really pleased.
great, great. Any other, yes,
I'll
Ken?
just share that the Air District yesterday approved our strategic plan. So the draft will now be the strategic plan.
Okay. And I have one comment. I happened to listen to our executive director's podcast with a representative from Zoox, a robo-taxi that's going to be coming soon to Las Vegas and San Francisco. It's already taking its staff members around Foster City. Very, very exciting. You know, and we look at all of this and people say, well, they'll just run it in San Francisco. But my hope is that it could eventually come out here and help us solve our first mile, last mile problem. You know, I mean, that's always been the idea, and gosh, maybe it's going to happen in my lifetime, so very excited about that. Anyway, Tim or John or Matt, do you have anything to add?
It will happen in your lifetime.
Thank you.
Just a couple quick updates. Just welcome to the new boardroom. I know it looks pretty much the same, but there's new carpet, new ceiling tiles, new lights. Hopefully it feels brighter in here. Fresh coat of paint, you know, goes a long way. And so the suite is still being updated. So we are targeted to have the suite done by the end of September, but we're still waiting for furniture to be delivered. So probably like mid to late October is probably when the suite will be done. You're happy to go over there. I'm happy to take you over there after the meeting if you want to check it out. But walls are knocked down. It's very open, very, it's got the big open feel to it. It's really, I'm really excited about it. So, and then the second thing I was going to mention, Bollinger Canyon. So, you know, next week is a big week for that project. As Commissioner Perkins mentioned, we're, you know, closing Bollinger Canyon for nine days, but it's a lot of the work that's been done to date has been a lot of the superstructure, you know, the columns, you know, and so now to really get in there and erect this cable stay bridge, which is really going to be all of the really cool, exciting, you know, structure elements in terms of the cables and the deck, et cetera. All of that's going to be happening over the next week. So I know Ivan's going to be out there every day. I'm planning on going out there a few days next week to go see what's going on and check things out. We're probably going to send a photographer out there, just kind of, you know, take some great pictures and stuff and just document the whole thing. And then the last thing is the May Mobility Project is being launched in September 16th. And so this is the County Hospital Autonomous Vehicle Project in the city of Martinez. You should have received an invite for September 12th for like a preview of the service. I've ridden the service. It's really exciting. I think May's doing a really great job. It's very much like I'll say like a Waymo experience. And so the project is very, very focused on labor. And so we've actually been training bus drivers to be the AVOs, the autonomous vehicle operators. And so it's really exciting where we have gone to a candidate pool of about all of the bus drivers. And basically it's on a volunteer basis. So they had to volunteer to do this. And then we out of the number that have volunteered, we have certified 5, and they've been certified by DMV. So they have to get like a permit from DMV to be an AVO. We have 6 vehicles. We're down 1 driver still, so we're in the process of still recruiting for that 1 additional driver. So when the service will launch, we'll have 5 vehicles operating. The service is twofold. Because this is labor, we have to pay them an 8-hour shift. So you can't split the shift either. So we're doing 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. and from 2 to 6 is going to be the paratransit, wheelchair accessible medical facilities piece, where you'll be able to go to the different Contra Costa medical facilities, but also based on data from Contra Costa Health Services, we'll be able to leave the hospital and fill prescriptions at other locations, like Walgreens, Safeway, those types of things. And then starting from 6 to 10, The service will be completely open to the public, and it'll be basically an on-demand microtransit system. And the way the system works, and kind of aligns with what we heard, is it's a service area of a big portion of the city of Martinez. It's not fixed route, so it's a big service area, and there's about 33 designated fixed stops. And basically what you do is in the mobile app, you say, I want to go from this stop to this stop. And it's a point-to-point service within that service area with these shuttles. And so, and that'll be, again, available to all the public, and you basically download to access the service. And if all of you want to go check it out after September 16th, you download the May Mobility app on your phone. It's available on Android and iOS. And then you just click on Martinez, and it'll drop you into our service area, and then you'll be able to hail the vehicle. It'll come pick you up at each of those stops. So really, really exciting, much different than some of the experience that we've done with the shuttles at Rossmore and Bishop Ranch, which is truly fixed route. This is more of an on-demand experience. And so we're excited for that. I did give a presentation to the Martinez City Council yesterday about the service. And so they're obviously very excited about it. So hopefully you can all make the launch on September 12th. And if not, drop into Martinez from 6 to 10 and check out the service, and let me know if you have any questions or concerns. And I think that was all my updates.
Okay, and Tim, I will be there. I'm very excited about this, so I'm glad I have the time and I can do that. Sounds really cool. Okay, anything else? No? So if there's no other business, we will now adjourn at 2:51 p.m. And our next regular meeting is scheduled for October 3rd. Thank you, everyone.